Hey everybody, Eric Schweitzer here from TheGamer, and I'm here with Editor-in-Chief Stacy Henley. We are looking at Persona 5 Tactica. Stacy, hello.
Hello.
Persona 5 as a tactics game.
Yeah, it's not necessarily what I expected when they were going to keep doing Persona 5, but I really like tactics games, especially ones that have a bit more kind of a social edge to them. You know, like Fire Emblem's obviously the obvious one, and I really like Persona 5, and I really like what they've done after the game. You know, I prefer Strikers, so I was quite excited for this one, but expectations weren't quite met. I think it's fine,
Hmm,
but it's not the match made in heaven that it probably should have been.
I see. I really like tactics games too. It feels like the most niche genre that has the most games.
Yeah.
Um, but the problem with them is that they can be pretty samey. And I'm always really interested in the ones like Mario Rabbids that kind of breaks the
Yeah.
mold. And I saw a little bit of Rabbids qualities here, but it certainly looks a lot deeper than Rabbids, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, what we've just seen on the screen there is when you knock a character who's out of cover down, you get to move again, and you get to like surround them. You do these they call triple threats, but they're basically the all out attacks from the base game. So there's a lot of different elements to it that do come together quite well. But the problem is, you say the tactics games feel quite samey. The problem that I have in this one is that a lot of the personas feel quite samey, and you know,
Yeah.
most persona games, the big deal of playing them is that all of the characters feel unique. There's not really much in the way of like type advantage or those types of things in this game. It's more just minor status effects. Like if you shocks, you can't move as much.
Mm.
So I think there is some more depth to it, but considering how much they could have done with the persona qualities, I still think that's lagging.
That's interesting because it looks so Persona, but it doesn't quite nail what Persona's gameplay feels like.
No, I think other than Arena, who's the character we have on the screen now, is kind of a big narrative part of the story that we can't really talk about. All of the other characters, they have their persona to call upon, and they have firearms. Now, the firearms are used a little bit too much for me, not in a kind of, you know, guns are bad and video game cause violence way, just in a, I don't think guns are that big a part of persona. I think it's weird that they're in so much.
Mm.
So I wanted to use the persona attacks a lot, but unfortunately, a lot of the time what that meant was just a generic kind of power attack that didn't do it. Didn't really matter if I took Joker or Ryuji or Anne. They all felt the same, even though they had different aesthetics and had minor differences to the status ailments. They just didn't feel like the choices you made were important. About halfway through, I stopped taking Joker just because it was annoying me that I had Joker for everything. I don't have any problem with Joker as a character. I just felt like, well, may as well see some of the other guys because it just didn't matter.
Mm. Okay, well, can you talk a little bit about the story? Because I know that that's usually a draw for Persona games.
Yeah, so I can pretty much go up to halfway through the story, and then I have to tiptoe around a lot of the plot points. But what we're
Mm.
seeing now, we can see Ryuji, Yusuke, and Anne on the screen. They had those kisses on their heads. So right in the start of the game, every character other than Joker and Mona are kidnapped, and they're brainwashed. And you spend the first half of the game, along with Arena, who's on the screen now. You spend the first half of the game basically unlocking them again. You rescue them from where they're kidnapped. You occasionally fight them. You don't really need to beat them all that often. It's just like getting through scenarios while they're attacking you. And then once you get them back, another guy shows up. Um, a little bit like in Strikers, where they just kind of throw in a new character. He's a politician. He's kind of the story is about how he became a politician and why, and the a lot of personas always about the political impacts of different things. So you kind of go through his story and various, I guess, things that influenced his journey through politics. There's a little bit more interesting than it sounds,
This
but
doesn't
it's
sound
not
very
gripping.
good.
Yeah. Um, the thing that annoyed me really is the big draw, as you've said, are the Phantom Thieves. It's the story, it's the
Uh-huh.
social side of it. And for half the game, you don't even play as the Phantom Thieves, just Joker and the cat, which it's not
Mm.
what I'm there for.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the second half of the game, you are really a passenger in somebody else's story. And when it eventually gets to like where it's going, and I say eventually, the game's been about 19 hours, so it's not a big long Persona game like some of them have been, or even as long as, a Fire Emblem game, much longer than 19 hours. So, but yeah, once it eventually gets to where it's going, I like the ending. I like what happened, but it wasn't a story any real point about the characters that I am here for. It was about a random adult man
They
who
really
we've never
went
met
all in on
before.
the spin-off idea.
Yeah. I think if you are here purely for, I want to kind of meet these characters and spend more time in their world. That's what I really loved about Strikers. Strikers wasn't an excellent version of its the Muso genre, but it was fun, and it was not just fun, but it was really understood the characters and the cast, and it felt like it was giving you more time with these people that you loved. And this doesn't. This feels like they've made a game and they've put Persona in it. It's a little like when they made Crash Team Racing and they just had a racing game and they went, this will sell more copies if we put Crash Bandicoot in it. It feels a little bit like that. They've got this kind of introduction to tactics game, kind of, I suppose, similar to the South Park RPGs where they're like teaching you how the genre works more than anything else. A lot of this game is that kind of, not necessarily entry level, but certainly it expects you to learn it as you go. And then from there, it adds in the Phantom Thieves wherever they fit, and even if they don't fit,
Okay.
they just get put in there anyway.
And you said it's about 19 hours. That's pretty short for a tactics game.
Yeah, what we've got on the screen now are the quests. These are significantly harder. I've just had to restart. I had to restart it several times. Didn't record them all for obvious reasons. The quests are all optional other than the first one. They alone probably take maybe half that if you like to try to do them properly to play on I was playing on normal. I think I might have bumped one of them down to easy because I was like, no, this is not stopping me. I'm moving on. So those add a lot of depth and a lot of time to the game, but the basic story is pretty short.
Can you push?
So what you can do with these is everyone gets their own like limits on how far they can move, what they can do. They each have different bonuses. The idea of how the movement works is it wants you to basically use one character to set up an extra attack. Or those things that say get them, that means you'll get an extra attack if you do it. So it wants you to use one character to set those up, and then the next character to execute the attack. But if you time it well enough, you can keep setting those up and chain them all the way across the board.
Oh, okay. And is that position based? Like they have to be near each other to do that?
So they have to be. This is a really, really small raid, so the quests are smaller, and even like the first levels that I could record are quite small. That's really the one place where the challenge comes into it, because if you keep everyone close together, you can set up a lot of those attacks. But if you keep everyone quite far apart, which is what I learned with this quest, what I should have been doing from the start later on, but it kind of took me a while to figure out how it worked because the maps are so small. If you spread everybody out and you knock just one enemy down, doesn't matter who, if one enemy is knocked down and you make a triangle around them, every enemy in that triangle will die. Even if they're not knocked down. So it's harder to knock them down when you spread out, but it's much easier, obviously, the further apart you are, the bigger the triangle is. So there were some missions later on when, rather than doing what I'm doing in this one, where I'm knocking them down, trying to get one extra turn, going to the next one, I was just knocking one of them down and sending the other two to the far corners of the map, making a triangle and saying, right, okay, that's this square done. But it's weird because it relies so much on movement, and you can't really see it in this mission as much, but in some of the other missions that were a little bit easier and didn't have so much cover around them, if you run up to somebody and shoot them just directly in the face, they still count as being covered. Like
Okay.
they're still kind of being behind cover, so it wants you to use movement, but it also wants you to keep your distance. And I think that's a place where it falls down.
Interesting. I mean, I can see the idea. It is kind of a bit of an interesting spin on the positioning aspect, but yeah, that sounds a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you just watched the kind of quest there, and I think most of the missions all have three goals, right? One is beat the mission, second is beat it in X amount of turns, and the third one is usually something like do a special attack or, you know, do one of these triangle attacks or knock down seven enemies or some kind of attainable goal.
Hmm.
In I would say it's 75-80% of the missions, I was not just beating them first time, but I was beating them first time on the requisite amount of tries. So that
Mm.
quest that we just kind of seen a few times that I've had to repeat, that's really the place where the game gets to stretch its mechanics, but also puts you in such a small space that you can't really use the movement. So I don't know. I think it's clearly going for newcomers to the genre, but I think if it had gone just a little bit trickier in its difficulty, maybe some broader maps earlier on, and made it more about the Phantom Thieves, there's a lot that they could have done here. Because what we're looking at now with all these different personas, there's so many of them, and they do so little to like swing the game. And like this is just level 9. Like by the end of the game, I was at level 70, and it goes up to like 96. Um, I had like maxed everything out because I hadn't been repeating the missions 'cause I hadn't needed to. So I think there's a lot of potential that just isn't used, but at the same time, I think it's pretty happy to kind of skirt by as what it is.
Hmm. Well, talk a little bit more about this summoning system. So
Yeah.
you basically you spend your currency to buy new personas, and then what is this thing where you're combining them together?
Yeah, I mean, the spending doesn't really come into it very much because you unlock like two or three at the end of every level.
Okay.
Once you've got the first kind of, I'm at level 14 here and I hadn't been doing it, so I had to buy. But like once I got to like level 20, it was the buying doesn't really come into it. But yeah, so basically, in the base games, people will know Joker can be whatever persona you want. You can load them out. You can pick them. Arsene's his main one, but he can have other ones, and everyone else just gets one.
Mm.
They have a very specific purpose, and in the main game, you need to make choices over the kind of characters that you want. Um, Haru does psychic damage. Ryuji, sorry, does electric damage, and that's an important part of building your team. In Tactica, you can have everyone has their main persona, including Arsene for Joker, and then you can add one extra persona to them. So this is what's happening now. You pick a different existing persona, and that merges with the base persona that you have. So, like I said, Ryuji has electric powers, but if you merge it with a character that has freeze damage, he can do electric and freeze damage.
Okay. I mean, that sounds like it adds a lot of depth.
It would add depth if the status ailments did enough to affect the game.
Ah.
I think a much bigger thing, we've got this on the screen now, I'm picking the party, um, how much movement each character can do and what they give to the party. Like having
Hmm.
Joker means you get better gun damage, Rouge means you get more health, etc., etc. Those kind of decisions I felt mattered a lot more. And some of the characters have AoE damage with their guns. Arena has like dual fire pistols, like a kind of Lara Croft thing, so she kind of shoots in a random pattern. Ryuji has a shotgun, so it gets kind of a big blast off that. Whereas Joker has a much more precision shot. So because you use guns more than the personas, it's more that way you get the depth, kind of figuring out which characters you want and why, and trying to get them to use that movement because the wind damage in the game blows people out of cover, so it's
Hmm.
essential to set up these all-out triangle attacks.
So I'm not a Persona guy. I know the characters. I've seen it. It's
Yeah.
been around so many years. But and I know this is maybe going to be an unpopular opinion, but I find a lot of the audio, a lot of the dialogue in this so annoying.
This is a really, really bad representation, I think, of everything Persona could be, because there's basically three different types of like cutscene that you can have in Persona. One is the fully voiced, fully acted, animated cutscenes. They're the famous things. They're great. They're still great in this. They're a big, big part of the game. The second one is when they have actual conversations and you hear the characters, read the lines. They're also very good. And then there's the kind of you click through the text and it's just kind of story after story after story going on and on and on. The problem with those is they're really overused in this one. There's a lot of the conversations are just kind of random barks. And I know you actually quite like Kingdom Hearts, so I feel like I'm getting my own back for that Persona comment. But it feels like in Kingdom Hearts when you meet the Disney characters and you think, you're not Donald Duck. That's not what he says. This isn't what he says. This isn't his personality. What are you talking about? You meet Mickey Mouse and he spends 25 minutes talking about the power of friendship, and you just think, go away. So I feel this is like the Kingdom Hearts version of the Phantom Thieves. It's just so obviously not the gang. It's just not. It's not the guys. It's what it would be like if they were in Kingdom Hearts.
Interesting. To me, what was sticking out, just because I was mostly watching gameplay, it's just like they use these simple guitar riffs that just play endlessly. All the characters say the same voice line when you select them. Sometimes they just shout Persona, and you're just listening to them repeat themselves over and over. And I was like, man, this probably gets really old.
Yeah, the shouting Persona thing does, and each character has their own achievement or trophy, I guess, if you're playing on PlayStation, for like using them, I think, 20 times, and they're named after the line that they say. So like by the end, because I got it with all of them, because I was like, no, I'm going to get something out of this experience. By the end, it was just burned into my brain, like the things that they say, in each individual, like casting, I guess, when they use Persona. Is that what it is? I don't know. Summoning, that's what they call it. But I do think the
But that's supposed to be like iconic. Like they do that on purpose.
Yeah, it's like a catchphrase thing.
Yeah.
And as I like the music in Persona, the fact that we could only show the first half of the game, and I say first half, that's what it is kind of mathematically in terms of playtime and the amount of missions that we can show. But the first half is all just one big chunk of the same. And then the second half, there's 5 different like elements to it. Not like zones or levels, everything's just like the maps change in different ways, the music changes. So the back half has a lot more variety, I think, in terms of its presentation. Not so much the enemies, they're going to stay the same the whole way through, they just get bigger or tougher. But musically and aesthetically, I'm sure as someone you've only seen like the first half. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I understand why people are protective of like the story. They don't want to spoil it, and people love Persona, but I feel like I'm being meaner than I need to be to this game because all of the things that I liked about it are like after the bit that I can talk about.
Oh man. Okay. Well, what score did you give it?
I gave it a 3 out of 5. It was fine. That's the same score that I gave Mario Strikers last year, and I felt the same way about it. It was a really good idea that they didn't really take any potential of. No, God, no. I gave that a 4. The Mario Strikers game.
Oh, okay.
I think I gave Strikers a 4 or 4.5. I loved that. But no, Mario Strikers, when it came out last year, I was really excited for the Mario sports game. Strikers is my favorite version of that. Ditto with this. I much prefer a tactic game than I would to the Muso game of Persona Strikers. So I was really excited for it. And I was just like, it's fine. I don't hate it. I sound like I hate it more because I really wanted to love it and I don't love it.
Yeah.
It's just a bit. It's not quite there, and the bits that I can talk about are the most dull parts of it.
I know exactly how you feel. It's like a genre that you enjoy and a franchise that you enjoy, but it just didn't come together.
Yeah. And, for the people that might land, but I feel like I'm the target audience here. I wanted to like the game.
Yeah.
I like the type of game it is. I like the people who are in the game.
Right.
Can't please me then.
Well, is this going to be the end of Persona 5?
I really, really thought that Strikers was going to be the end of Persona 5 because that made so much sense. That was a road trip in summer
Uh-huh.
before they like went off to college. It was the perfect kind of wrap up ending. This doesn't feel like it's anywhere. Like you spend pretty much all of the time in the metaverse. There's not really any real life stuff to it. There's no character development or anything like that. It's not really even about the Phantom Thieves.
Hmm.
So by virtue of the fact that they're going to do Meta 4 Refazio, I think it's called, next year, and then presumably Persona 6 the year after, I think it's probably the last Persona 5 game that we get, but it's not, doesn't feel like this is the ending.
Yeah.
It's just a game with these characters in.
Featuring the characters from
Yeah.
Persona 5.
I
Yeah.
would say if you love love Persona 5, then you need to play Strikers because it directly follows the story. This is just the gang doing stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's a good review for Persona 5 Strikers. Go play that game.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
Um, no, not really. I guess what I would say is, you can marry each and every one of the Phantom Thieves in this game, and that will be enough to get other people to buy it.
Oh, well, you should have started with that.
Yeah,
Now I'm sold. Okay, that's it for this review. Thank you, Stacy, and thank you for watching. You can read the full review link down in the description. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's TheGamer, no space.